Hey, what's up? It's April 5th, 2020. For me, that's day 9 of quarantine in beautiful Monroe, Washington, with a view of the lake. I'm above my sister's garage while I ride out quarantine. She's got this amazing space, and keeping it beautiful is one of the steps, I think, to staying sane. Part of what makes it beautiful is attempting to lay stuff out. Now, there's some mattresses against the wall, which I don't have much option to do something gorgeous with. But maintaining a layout where things are attractively placed seems to make all the difference for sanity. So that's one step. But what I want to cover right now is Ricardo's restaurant in London. First, it's arguably the best restaurant in the world. Some of the evidence for that is people that could choose to go anywhere, go there, and even go there on occasions. For strong example, Princess Kate Middleton in London can go anywhere she wants to celebrate her birthday. And this year, 2020, she went to Ricardo's in London the day before her birthday to celebrate her birthday with her friends. The day of her birthday was likely in Buckingham Palace. She can go anywhere she wants. She has the means to eat anything, anywhere, and that's where she goes. That's also where she went to show her friends her engagement ring when she was engaged, and not just Princess Kate Middleton. If you Google Ricardo's Restaurant London and look at paparazzi sites or paparazzi photos, you will see the world's who's who are there regularly. And they're not there to find other who's who, so it's not like it's some secret club. They're there, they bring their friends or family with them. So why? Why is this arguably the best restaurant in the world? Is it they have a better kitchen than anyone else? I worked in their kitchen for 1 week with the head chef at that time, Antonio. He's amazing. And the kitchen is phenomenally efficient, phenomenally lean, phenomenally laid out, but not more so than many other restaurants I've been in. The kitchen is not the differentiator. It has a low ceiling. I have to duck regularly. You have to remember where the low ceilings are, which is common in some of the world's great restaurants. It's not like they have a beautiful purpose-built kitchen the way they wanted it. They made the kitchen fit within the old building floor plan so the building could be where they wanted it, in this case the Chelsea neighborhood of London, which is ultra competitive. Many of the nicest restaurants on the planet are arguably in the Chelsea neighborhood of London. So I would contend it's not the kitchen. The kitchen is not special. The refrigeration room is not special. The cooktop is not special. Even the suppliers are not unusual for the Chelsea neighborhood in London. It's not a secret supplier list. It's the same set of suppliers that all the other restaurants have similar access to, and many of them do order some goods from there. And they don't have special farmers market goods, not more than any other restaurant in the area does. They don't have their own private farm. They don't have their own private winery agreement, which some other restaurants even do. So if it's not the kitchen and it's not the food, it must be the staff. Well, Antonio has not been the chef the entire time. In fact, when I was there, I even cooked within 1 week. And many people cook. Now, Antonio is extremely talented, as is, there's a new chef now, and also very talented. And I am not very talented, and even I cooked restaurant food in that kitchen in the week I was there. So I will guarantee, with me even being one of the people behind inside the kitchen at sometimes, it's not the staff. The staff is good, but that's not the key differentiator. Well, is it the menu? No. The menu rotates weekly. The menu is invented by the staff with feedback from the customers. Now, that makes it iterate, which does give it a strong advantage. But many restaurants have rotating menus. Not many ask the staff regularly. And I'm going to come back to that as being what I think is one of the key differentiators, the amount of customer engagement. But I will contend it's not the menu. And much of the menu is traditional, and all of by that I mean well-known and well-copied and well-distributed, and many other restaurants can make the same menu. Also, the menu is totally open-sourced. The menu is published with how to make it and the ingredients list on YouTube. Many of the dishes have been. So it's not a secret menu with secret preparation techniques, and it's not a special kitchen, and it's not a unique supplier or ingredients access, and it's not magic or completely rare or impossible to replicate employees. And it's not the building either. This one's harder to prove because Ricardo's has only moved space 3 times in 25 years. But even with the location moves, it was still a top attraction restaurant. So it doesn't seem to be tied to that particular brick and mortar either. But I'll say other brick and mortars within walking distance are arguably more gorgeous, arguably more fine dining, arguably more eye-catching, arguably more instagenic, although Ricardo's is a very nice layout and it's very attractive. But I'll argue it's not the building or the decor. So what makes it so phenomenal? When I'm there, Ricardo runs a daily Scrum meeting, sometimes once an hour, depending on how fast they need to pivot, but at least once a service, so lunch and then again for dinner, with all staff. There's cross-training among team members, so the chefs can do what's called front of house, where they seat people, greet people, ask folks how their meal was. It's not that they're hyper-trained. The onboarding is right about 5 minutes. It can go as long as an hour, but the essentials are right about 5 minutes. I went through it in the week I was there, and it's not that the staff is hyper-trained. And there's turnover. People join and leave every week. So it's not that they have the luxury of a stable team, which Ricardo says he wishes he had. But the training is not arduously long. It's not radically intense. But what the training centralizes on is that these people are empowered, that anyone in the restaurant can do. In restauranting, this is the highest form of trust. They can comp a meal. They can give away a free meal. Anyone in the restaurant can. In fact, the rule is similar to even a brand new hire can give away a meal for up to 2 people, but they have to justify why to Ricardo that service. They don't have to wait for Ricardo. They can do it immediately, but they have to justify why that service before they go home to Ricardo. Otherwise, it would be taken from their salary. So they can't just comp to a friend, right? Because new people join all the time, and we don't know their ethical background or moral structure. But for customer service, they're allowed to do even this. Now, experienced employees that Ricardo has already seen not abuse this right are able to comp for even in the entire restaurant. So if there's a banquet service and something untenable occurs, they could comp the entire banquet service, which could break the restaurant. It could put the restaurant out of business. But they have the full authority to do that and don't have to wait for Ricardo. So why would you do that? And they're trained, and I was trained in the time I was there. It's if the customer, a reasonable customer, should have walked out and doesn't. If a customer should have walked out, they'd be perfectly within their normal expectation for a London restaurant that is attempting to do world-class service. If they should have walked out on the meal and not paid and didn't, then that is a wonderful reason for the meal to be compensated for them. They should have walked out. So what are reasons why someone should have walked out? They're given the wrong plate. They explain that they're in a hurry and the meal is later than normal service. The check is dropped off and the wait staff doesn't wait to see if the staff wants to pay immediately, and then which would be one strike against, but not quite ready to walk out, and all Ricardo staff is trained against that. But then in addition, the staff comes more than 15 minutes later. They should have just walked out. Those would be reasons to comp a meal. This level of employee empowerment, combined with the regular feedback loop of these daily stand-up meetings, more than daily, these iteration stand-up meetings. And these iterations are at least once a service and sometimes once an hour, sometimes every 45 minutes. And during these iterations, the menu could change, the ingredients could change, the staff training could change, the method of making the coffee could change, the way the bar is run or the way seating is happening could change, the layout of the restaurant could pivot. For a phenomenal example, what this has done is created more resilience than any other restaurant in their area, and this is provable. The coronavirus outbreak happened, well, in London, it hit home a week and a half ago, is when the stay-in-place order happened. So to put a timestamp on this video. The government said all restaurants must be closed. Riccardo met with his team. They had their daily stand-up like they always do, so change is on a regular cadence anyway. And Riccardo said, our government has said all London restaurants must close. Delis can stay open. Team, would you like to pivot this restaurant to a deli? Now, deli in this context means would you walk in and buy groceries? You become a neighborhood market, and you can buy some cooked food. The team voted unanimously yes, and in 5 hours, they pulled out tables. So all the tables are 6 meters apart or more. And in the now open space, the dead space between tables, they put tables back that displayed food for sale. So they sold the wine they already had from their existing suppliers. They sold salamis and dried meats. They sold vegetables, which became completely necessary in their neighborhood, Fulham Road in Chelsea in London, because so many other neighborhood businesses had shut down. And a lot of the people living in this area did not have access to groceries in the area or any type of cooked food. So they became a hero in their neighborhood. Now, Riccardo went a step further. And this, I think, is why the restaurant was such a good restaurant and then now became such a good deli, why it's special. Not the building, not even the amazing staff, not even the quite good lean flow optimized kitchen, not even the excellent recipes. It's because, I think, this. Riccardo sent an email and a Facebook post that day. He sent it to anyone that had made a reservation in the last, I think, 6 months, and a list of engaged neighbors that he had, and anyone he knew that was within a 5-minute walk of the restaurant. The email and the Facebook post said, "We are here to do anything you need. We're a full stack restaurant." Now I'm paraphrasing, I'm using some different wording here. Some background. I think a lot of people don't know, I didn't know till I worked in the restaurant for a week, that in a restaurant when the toilet breaks, you might not have time for a plumber to come in and fix it. You have to have tools to fix it and know how to fix it. So there's at least one person on staff, and ideally several people cross-trained on how to pull a toilet, install a new toilet, sweat pipe, and they have welding gear, pipe fittings, wax rings, replacement fixtures in less than 15 minutes, because the whole restaurant's viability, that entire service rides on that, and that's the profit for the entire day. If the roof starts leaking, they need to fix that themselves within an hour, ideally within 10 minutes. So you have roof patching, you have tar, you have roof torches, and people know how to use them. They have electrical repair equipment, replacement breaker boxes, the full-on credentials and equipment to do full electrical remodel and repair, because they need to do that in minutes. If the power goes out in the restaurant, they can't wait for the standard electricians the neighborhood uses to come. They have to do it immediately. Now, I don't think many people know that about a high service restaurant. I know that if I was in the Ritz-Carlton and the power went out, I'd expect it back on in minutes. Having someone come to my table and say, it's going to be out the rest of the day, I would be surprised to have that happen in a high-end setting. Now, I hadn't realized that's because I expect the restaurant to have their own independent means from the rest of the neighborhood to rectify the situation, which is exactly what they do. So now with that context, I'll go back to the email and the Facebook post Riccardo made. He says, in our neighborhood, if you need anything, we are here to serve you for free. He says, we want to make this a fantastic neighborhood for you. We want you to feel as safe as we can in this time of uncertainty. We want you to have warm, healthy food, which we do delivery, and they doubled down and re-optimized the delivery they were already doing. And we can fix your plumbing. We can fix leaks. We can fix your electrical. We can do repairs. We can clean fallen branches. We can do what you need. Let us know anytime. Reach out to me personally. Here's my personal cell phone number, which he sent in an email, and it's on Facebook. That got enormous community response. He sent 600 text messages using a bulk tool to that list as well. He got more than 400 incredibly enthusiastic and appreciative replies. His restaurant, now deli and neighborhood repair service, thrived. Now let me define thrive. Every other restaurant on Fulham Road, which is a commercial road, full of restaurants, closed. Every single one within the next week. And actually, it was faster. It was within days, but I can at least say within the next week because I don't know the number of days. Riccardo told me, and I don't remember. It's like 3 days. Every single other restaurant shuttered its doors, except Ricardo's. So the fast pivot mentality that became normal, because it's not the team was trained about how to handle a fast pivot when it happens. It's that fast pivots were done every service as a routine. They were the rhythm. That's what's different here, I'll propose. And Ricardo's direct engagement and enthusiasm, which you can't put a price on. An engaged, enthusiastic figure, which is fully present in Riccardo. So the team is used to pivoting, and they're used to this charismatic, engaged Riccardo being present almost every day and leading these pivots. So when they pivot, it's normal for them. And they pivot again every service to stay up to date with whatever the current regulations and needs are. So they switch from restaurant to deli, from deli to deli and neighborhood repair service. Then they get requests from 2 major local hospitals, major area hospitals, saying they'd like food. Riccardo asks the team to vote. The team votes again. 2 things happen at once. 1, 2 area hospitals asked, can they provide food? Also, the government said, we don't know when we can ever pay businesses, but if you try to stay open, you can't pay your staff. Then your staff isn't eligible for government assistance later. You have to lay off your staff. So you have to close, is what the government said to most types of businesses. If you try to stay open, like Riccardo's was doing, you can't pay your staff. Otherwise, they're ineligible for financial assistance. You have to furlough them. So Riccardo asks his team to vote. He says, I can't pay you. I can't even profit share. And what they had been doing is doing community service for free, but still charging at cost delivery of a menu that had been rebuilt with a nutritionalist's advice on immune systems boosting. And that's Petronella. You can read her book, Petronella Diet, or The Human Being Diet. And what that allowed them to do is still pay their suppliers partial payments instead of declaring bankruptcy immediately and the suppliers got nothing, and allowed them to still pay their staff originally in the first iteration of this, instead of having to lay off all their staff immediately like every other restaurant on Fulham Road did, and in the wider neighborhood as well. But now the government says you've got to lay off your staff, most types of businesses, if they're going to be eligible for government assistance. However, we don't yet have any timeline or application process for when they're going to get assistance. So it's a full unknown of when money's going to come in, and if so, how and how to apply. So Ricardo asked his team to vote, what do you want to do? The team voted, almost everyone, the vast majority, that they will volunteer. They will work for free. That way they're not paid, they're eligible for future assistance, but they want to keep helping the neighborhood. And they want to keep sharp on how to be a team. So when the restaurant is able to open with paid staff again, they're immediately ready because they're still doing it. So what were they able to do as volunteers? They continued neighborhood assistance, but they started cooking bulk food for the 2 area hospitals that had requested it. Now, here's where reality gets in the way. One hospital replied saying, yeah, you're going to have to let us know how much and what dishes are coming 2 weeks in advance so we can schedule it in our logistics, in our waterfall logistics process. They said, it's such a mess. We don't know how to distribute this food. We're not sure what to do with it. That hospital was so overwhelmed, they actually didn't say thank you. The other hospital wrote a thank you letter. They sent pictures. They said how phenomenally grateful they were and what a difference it made. So part of this story is being ready to receive assistance in a grateful way, so that even assistance isn't overwhelming. But that's the truth of what happened with those 2 area hospitals, as I heard it from Ricardo's and his team. Next pivot is financially, what do you do with the team members? And Ricardo says, look, you got to be volunteers. I can't even do profit share with the money that's coming in from our neighborhood. But what we can do is make the most difference possible for our neighbors and our neighborhood businesses. And they had another pivot this morning that I don't have the details of yet. Another newsworthy pivot. But I'd like to be clear how the best restaurant in the world started serving hospitals and stayed open and didn't have to lay off all staff and didn't have to go bankrupt and not pay any of its suppliers and didn't lose significant amounts of money. They operated at cost. So that meant instead of just going to sleep and no one gets paid, no suppliers gets paid, they were able to operate at cost in a way that their neighbors loved, in a way that one of the 2 area hospitals loved. I believe the difference of how the best restaurant in the world started cooking food for hospitals and many other things is they already had a regular cadence of retrospective, of Kaizen. They ran daily stand-up meetings. They also ran retrospectives. They also run what are called sprint planning meetings or iteration planning meetings, where for the service, they put Post-it notes on the wall and say, what's important, what do we need to make sure happens this service? Now, routine work is trained in, but there are events, there are photo shoots, or there are weddings, there are different table layouts, there's supplier changes, there's menu changes. Those go on Post-it notes on the wall for the team to plan. Sometimes it's a different way of serving the coffee, a different way of mixing or presenting the cocktails, a different way of greeting the guests learned from last service. These happen in iteration planning. Then the retrospectives. What went well this service? What didn't go well this service? What do we want to do to make the next service more awesome? Or many different formats. They have roles. They have this cadence. They have these set events. They say it's Scrum. And being in that restaurant and being a certified Scrum trainer myself, I'd say, yeah, it's the world's best Scrum restaurant. I've seen other restaurants do pieces of Scrum. In Bellevue, Spice Route Indian restaurant, Vibhu Srinivasan brought Scrum into the restaurant. But I haven't seen a restaurant do full Scrum the way a business does, the way a bank does, the way a manufacturing company does. And I see that at Ricardo's. And it is why they attract the world's the highest means clients that can go anywhere, that can do anything with their time. And I'll use that as a definition for the best restaurant in the world. And it's how they're able to respond to diversity better than any of the restaurants in their area, which are also vying for those same clients. So they're also arguably some of the best restaurants in the world. And Ricardo's outmaneuvered them in crisis, in an area of change. Is the only restaurant open on Fulham Road and in that wider neighborhood. And it's the only restaurant that continues to get rave reviews and community support. And to sum up why, it's a regular rhythm of iteration, of inspection and adaptation that's fully transparent to all staff. These are not backroom meetings. These are in the middle of the restaurant with all staff as customers are coming in. All customers can see these events happening. They're streamed on Zoom. Sometimes they're posted publicly for anyone, even if you're not in the restaurant. These are fully public, not backroom meetings. So they inspect and adapt transparently on a regular rhythm. They use team buy-in and support. Ricardo is a phenomenally charismatic, energetic leader. However, he's always asking the team, what do you want? He'll give his opinion, but he is always asking for votes, soliciting buy-in, and listening for feedback and changing. So he's the opposite of a tyrant. He's a charismatic, high energy, with vision, servant leader. You put these two things together and you have the best restaurant in the world that is endurable in any type of crisis that's been thrown at them so far, when none of the other restaurants or businesses in the area have been able to stay open. And I think that's an important lesson for everybody. Now, to cap this, I'll call this section Scrum Princess, because you have Princess Kate Middleton choosing this restaurant. And to cap this, I'll talk about the book, which is on Amazon now in English, Scrum Princess. It's a kid's book. It's a children's book. That book is a fantasy story about a little princess that lives in a kingdom, and she has a scrum master who's drawn like a magician, like Merlin, very, very much. And the scrum master helps her use Scrum to get everything she wants to get done. When large planning in advance and not iterating frequently and not having teams that could be cross-functional, do more than one thing, couldn't solve those problems. And they tell the story in a funny, cute way, even when unexpected crises happen, just like is happening with Ricardo's, and you see the same story. And I love that story because it's so simple and fun that adults and kids can read and follow the pictures, or just follow the pictures depending on age, and get it. Get what really works while smiling and laughing. It's cute. It's long enough to make a good bedtime story, but short enough to make a good bedtime story. And in minutes, anybody can get it. So I highly recommend that book, Scrum Princess. I think the authors and artists did a phenomenal job. I think it could be even better. I have some ideas for revision if they want to make it, or if they want to make Scrum Prince or Scrum Kingdom or any type of follow-up. But it's amazing. And I think Scrum Princess might be the right goal for us. Getting the essence super quickly with buy-in, inspect and adapt transparently, and attempt to be as charismatic and as energetic and as aligned with vision as possible. Man, this is right at the end of this video. It's going to really confuse the topic or any tags I might choose if I post it publicly. But I think this is important. I have been credited as being the most charismatic, vision-filled leader in the world. Now, many people might disagree, and that's totally fine. But I've been told I am that by hundreds of people. And maybe it's sometimes on a good day partly true. If it is, I'd like to share what helps me do that. One, attempting to find a feeling in my gut and try to be in touch enough with myself that I can tell if I'm having that feeling or not. Really, it's this feeling in my gut of exhilaration, of freedom, of free movement. For me, it feels like being able to, it's an imagination, it's a feeling, like being able to move in any direction at 1,000 kilometers a second. like being able to almost teleport. This freedom of motion is what it feels like. It's a weightless, infinite inertia, zero time to change inertia feeling. It's a feeling of movement. When I feel that, I know I'm exuding this enthusiasm that seems to magnetic thousands of people to do that work. When I don't feel that, I know my energy flags, my expression changes, my posture changes. People can see it in me from meters away. I can see it in me because I'm looking at the ground, not up and out at the horizon. Finding that feeling is one of the 3 powerful ingredients for me. The others are mentally, in my head, does a SWOT analysis make sense? So the SWOT analysis comes after, not first, but the SWOT analysis helps me improve and refine the scope of things I could try to maintain that feeling. And then in the middle, it's my heart, truly my heart. It's, does my chest feel relaxed and open, like I could get a hug from anybody and not get tight and tense? Or I could give a hug to anybody and not get tight and tense. Really, it's that. And if I look around at my room, whoever I'm with, hundreds of people, 2 people, just me, and think, could any of them walk up and hug me, even crying? And I would relax and melt into that hug. Now, it doesn't mean they ever need to. That might not be comfortable for a lot of people. But if they did, would I be able to relax and melt into it and receive that? And if the answer is yes, then my heart is open. Really. And those 3 aspects, a mental SWOT analysis, or there's many other tools, and this is where all the agile practices, engineering practices, technical practices, the years of training, the years of skill building, all the business books, they all weigh in. So I'll use SWOT analysis as a general concept of a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. But it could be a plus-minus retrospective. It could be any of the activities from Agile Retrospectives, Making Good Teams Great, the book by Diana Larson and Esther Derby, or their follow-up books. Any of these is the mind alignment. Then the heart alignment. Am I at peace and open and loving with the people in the room around me, and hopefully they with me? So I could hug them, they could hug me. And not that we ever need to hug, but this mental experiment is what lets me test, is my heart aligned with this? And then most important of all, it trumps all those things for me, is this feeling of freedom. So let me try to explain this a little better, how to test it. There are many times in my life I can't even tell if I'm feeling that feeling. That lets me know my diet is not working, my fitness is not working, my sleep habits are not working, or my heart is too locked up. Probably I couldn't receive a hug from other people at that time. And what I need to do is sit alone and imagine, or read fiction, or watch films, or go for a run. I need to try something different. I need to pivot. I need to think through the inputs I have or get some new interesting inputs. What I need is inspiration. I need the muse, as the Greeks would say. So music helps, trying to make music. Sometimes I go outside and I do martial arts, especially martial arts that have a yelling component, seems to help with this, being able to feel again. Whatever works for other people, I'd like to learn. That's some of the best I have now. There's a Chinese Shaolin Kung Fu routine called Sanhi, 3 measures fist, or the Iron Monk, that has a long sustained yell at the end, deep shaking from your lower gut as you're extremely physically exerting. So you can have boards broken over any part of your body, including your throat, if you do that exercise with significant training like I did for 16 years and still do on my own. That has been the most effective for me at blasting through whatever block I have internally to allow me to tell what I'm feeling. Afterwards, that's helped me better than any weightlifting, which I enjoy, than any run, which I enjoy. It's been very useful. So that's how I'm able to check in for me with what am I feeling. Then, am I lucky enough that I feel that sense of dramatic freedom and mobility is what it is for me. And if I'm not, then I'm hunting for inspiration. And what seems to work there is great science fiction. And by my definition of great, I mean inspiring, where they paint a different reality than the one I'm in now that is exciting. I'm excited, I'm elated, I'm inspired. That's what I mean by science fiction. Not just a soap opera, but with spaceships. But there's something different about it. There's this emergent technology or way of living or piece of psychology that exists that has made a different and exciting future. Watching what some really successful companies are doing will do that. Right now, for me, listening to the entire investors' calls or watching them of Tesla or SpaceX will do that for me. The amount of progress they make so quickly, and they do use many of the methods I've just been talking about, like Ricardo's, gets me that excited. Then with that feeling of excitement, I can execute on vision. I can try to align my mind, do product backlog refinement for those of you who are trained in Agile methods, and then work on my heart being open. Can I warmly give a hug to anyone in the room? And that is, I believe, how you become a charismatic leader who's aligned and energetic. Now, something I was told many, many times during Team WikiSpeed, highest points so far during the X Prize, was aesthetics matter. When we're rushing to get these lean prototypes done, in our case, they were cars. In Ricardo's restaurant's case, they're nutritious, potentially immune system boosting menu items in community service and hospital service, etc. It's got to look beautiful. And I'll pan again. I mean, this is I'm the only one that's been up in this room for 8 days now. So me and my phone are the only people that get to see this. But I think it's beautiful, and I think that matters. And I think having all the clothes folded in the closet creates a certain type of peace. For people that want to go deeper on that, KonMari, or Marie Kondo, gives some great tools and framework for that type of life management. But I'll say fitness and fashion and personal grooming, and they matter. They really matter. If you're aiming to be a influential, exciting, charismatic person, to have these capabilities around you, I think try to do those things to the extent you can. And everybody is fully forgiven for whatever it is they need to do and need to be at any given point. It's not about judging. It's not that at all. It's about capability building and health. And the idea of Feng Shui, where wind and water, where there are certain layouts that just look nice. And I'll see if I can make a trivial example. So when I came into this room, there's this drawing pad here waiting for me. And it was laid out something, let's see if I can even do it, like this. See how these two things are laying on top of each other? This is taken from food plating. Let's see if we can make this even more attractive. It's a balance of space with things in it and space without. And just trying to do this out of habit so it becomes super fast in the world around us seems to matter. And doing that with our clothes, trying to make our clothes balance, so color block balance, doing that with the way you maybe trim your facial hair. When you look in the mirror, when I look in the mirror, I think, where do I wish my body was bigger or smaller? It's not about weight loss or muscle gain or whatever. Where do I wish my body was bigger or smaller to have the right feng shui, the right balance that I want? And these things affect everything around us, is what I think, for attempting to be charismatic. If you look at Ricardo, he is always wearing a suit. Always. except when he's doing fitness training, and then he's wearing fitness gear, and then he puts his suit right back on, and he has his suit folded over the barbell while he's doing that, or over one of the pieces of fitness equipment. And I asked him about that, and he said, I always want to be able to walk into a bank or go into the nicest restaurant in London so I can close a deal or discuss options, or so I never miss that opportunity. And his closet is simply full of suits, and his coats are simply suit coats, period, always. And so it's always a white shirt, and it's always the same Italian cut suit, not too tight, not too loose, always, period. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to wear a suit, but I am saying that's part of why he's Riccardo, and why when Prince Harry comes into Riccardo's restaurant and starts shaking hands, it makes perfect sense for Riccardo to stand up and, well, actually, Riccardo's usually already standing, unless he's eating himself at the moment, and shake his hand back and have a photo taken together, etc. He's already dressed for the part, always. And that happened, by the way, along with many, many, many other things. Riccardo was invited to play tennis at Buckingham Palace, and he already had his fitness gear with him. He always does. And he's wearing a suit anyway. So he could walk right into Buckingham Palace. He's already dressed appropriately. And then he could play tennis. He already had his fitness clothes with him. Always. He's just prepared for that. A side note, Riccardo will say, 2 is 1 and 1 is none, which he credits as a military slogan. And the idea is, if you have only one cell phone and it breaks, you don't really have any. So he carries 2 cell phones, not because one is on a different country's SIM card or anything like that. They're 2 London SIM card cell phones, so that if one loses its battery or breaks or whatever, locks up, there's another one right there. 2 is 1, 1 is none. So he has 2 of everything. Now, only of the absolute essentials. He's really lean. When he travels, it's just a small checked bag. We traveled together for a while across Europe on speaking tours, working with different companies, working with Bosch, and then Agile consultancies across Europe. Yeah, so 2 is 1, 1 is none. Then he is fully cross-functional. He can do every single activity in his restaurant, including the welding, including the plumbing, including the roof repair, including the electrical, including the painting. He can run the bar. He can do the coffee service. He can train people on the bar coffee service. He does do front of house all the time, greeting, seating, thanking. He can do the billing. He can run the billing machines. He can cook every recipe in that restaurant. He can sous chef. He can porter. He can do the cleaning. Every aspect of that entire restaurant. And he does the onboarding training for everyone else in the company, which exudes that enthusiasm. Now, I've been deeply following SpaceX recently and how crazy fast they're going, how absolutely nutty fast they're going than anyone else, so much more cheaply with arguably so much more capability, arguably, but definitely more cheaply. The cost outlay is less than a tenth, and it's even less than that. I'll just have to do the math to know how much, but it's less than a tenth of their nearest competitor for something that's even more capable in terms of kilograms of cargo, how far, how fast. And they have exactly the same thing. If you look at the SpaceX job board this week, there are no management positions posted, 0. They're all welders, cutters, tube benders, and by tubes I mean super precise, computer numerically controlled operators of tube bending that can also do manual tube correction and fixes. It's not all relying on the machine. But we're talking intricate rocket engine tubing. It's all that are cross-trained as with graduate, bachelor's or graduate degrees in physics, in engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, etc. So these are all highly trained doers. They're all hands-on, every single one of them. I looked under the management or corporate search bar. All they had were food and coffee service. That's corporate's job. Corporate's job was to provide tasty, desirable, healthy, hot meals every 3 hours, 24 hours a day, and barista service. So custom, friendly, quick coffee if people want it. That's corporate's job. There's no management. Everyone else are highly trained engineers that are doers, hands-on. They're actual welders. So I was looking at this and I'm like, I can weld, and I can do composites, and I can do computational fluid dynamics and finite element analysis, and I can do CAD and CNC machining at a basic level. I can do all those things at a basic level. That makes me a superhuman for most types of Scrum and hardware projects. I'm a cross-functional team member. I can do software development, I can do embedded software development, I can do circuit board design, I can do procurement, supply chain management, warehousing, retrieval. I don't think I could even get a job at SpaceX. I don't think I even could. All the job openings are for people with more formal educational training than me. Master's degrees in physics, master's degrees in mechanical engineering, master's degrees in electrical engineering. There's some room for bachelor's too, but my bachelor's is in computer science. And then you are a highly skillful welder. You are a highly skillful CNC tube bender, CNC machinist, and manual. You've got to be manual and CNC, computer numerically controlled. And I'm okay at those things. I don't think I'd pass the interview. And I'm like really good. And I've set world records and trained thousands of people in how to do this in hardware. And they're an even higher level than that, every single one there. So you have 500 people in Boca Chica, Texas, and they're making entire rockets, nearly, every 7 days for $5 million apiece, $5 million US. And if you compare that to their nearest competitor, who made part of a rocket for, I think it was $2 billion US in 2 years, you see the dramatic difference when you run a group that way. And the parallel to Ricardo's is not only that you have cross-functional teams, and I didn't talk about the cross-functional aspect of SpaceX so much yet. That'll maybe be a separate recording. But every single employee is directly told to email Elon Musk if there's a problem they can't resolve, all the time. When they test a fixture, when they test a piece of a rocket, or an entire rocket, an integration test. What Elon tells them is you have full autonomy. You can build this thing however you want. Here's the constraints. You can build it however you want. What I will put pressure on you to do, and I wish he didn't put so much pressure from a sustainability purpose, but that's how he says it, is to reduce cost and make it faster, because then we can iterate faster, and that's our speed of improvement. So he'll do that. He'll say, you can do this any way you want, but the pressure is make it better, make it faster. So you keep making them. It's an assembly line. Even in prototyping, it's always an assembly line, because the assembly line is the method to keep changing the prototypes, to iterate, to improve the product. That's his entire strategy of new product development, new product improvement. So everyone is empowered to do that, and he's not micromanaging at all. But he's deep enough that people can come to him with any risk or any issue. And here's what I mean by that. He says, if it fails in testing, my question is going to be, was it knowable? Was it preventable, this failure? And very often when something does fail, the teams say, yeah, we didn't have high confidence. And to Musk, that's not forgivable. He'll say, well, why did you test it anyway? Why didn't you address the points that made you not have high confidence? So it's full empowerment with full accountability. And if it was unknowable, then it's forgiven. Everyone agrees this was a complete freak of nature. This was difficult to detect or impossible to detect. But if it was detectable, say it was poor welds, which it was on the last explosion of a pressurized section of Starship, the huge Mars colonization rocket system. It was bad welds. And Musk said, did everyone here have 100% confidence in the welds? And everyone said, no, we thought they were subpar. Musk said, then why did you test it? Why didn't you fix the subpar welds? And the answer was, well, we escalated it to someone we thought as a senior engineer, and they chose not to act on it. Musk said, that's not enough. Escalation to anyone but me is not enough. He says, if you email me directly and I sign off on the risk, I accept the risk, test it anyway, even if the welds are not high confidence, then it's on me and I accept it. Anyone else, I don't accept. He says, this is your baby. Don't bring it to test unless you know it's going to be well. And that's intense and profound. And it's such an effective group. And it exactly feels like how Riccardo runs Ricardos, works with his teams there. It's full empowerment, but full accountability. Now, if a risk is escalated to the top person, and by that I mean the person who's funding this, the person who, when we run out of funding, they're out of a house. So at Ricardos, that's Riccardo. At SpaceX, that's Elon Musk. If they sign off on the risk, then all is forgiven. If they don't, that means the risk is on you. And if that fails, they're fully in their right to say, what support do you need to improve? What machinery or technical practices or tools or training do you need to improve? Or I don't want you using my money anymore, which is a way to say you don't work here anymore. Now, hopefully that means they're going to help them find another job that fits their awareness, that fits their technical expertise, and I hope it's done in a respectful and loving and healthy way. But that's exactly how it is. That's how these companies don't waste funds and how they go super, super fast. It's a chain of radical accountability. Musk prefers to hire people who are known by existing staff, and the existing staff takes accountability for the new staff. If a newly hired person who's been referred by an existing employee, which is Musk's preference, if they perform subpar, so if they have parts that are failing the mission or parts that are failing structurally or not capable or high risk or whatever, poor design, the previous statements apply to them, but they also apply to the person who referred them. The person who referred them, reputation's on the line. This is what helps prevent, one, hiring unknowns, people without references, which is, they do it anyway, but it helps reduce that. And two, helps prevent people hiring their brother-in-law who really needs work but isn't very skillful, or their friend who really needs the job or really wants the job but is high risk. This is what has good people finding the folks in their network who are highly reliable for iterating extremely fast with high quality in a fun way that keeps morale up, because the referrers are also accountable. Like, their job is also on the line. Hopefully in a loving and healthy way. Now, that said, I was heartened to know that Musk has improved sustainability dramatically. The system for high efficiency at Tesla and SpaceX runs on 12-hour shifts, and it's 3 12-hour shifts and then a 4-day weekend. Then the next week, 4 12-hour shifts and a 3-day weekend. This has made significantly higher sustainability for all staff. So the lesson seems to be being learned. Also, there are hot, healthy, desirable meals every I believe it's 3 to 4 hours, 24 hours a day on all facilities, and really nice coffee. I've had the coffee there. It's super good, and it's barista served. For folks who want a taste of how that works, you can go to the Kettleman Supercharger. It's a public location. Now, you do need to have a Tesla to get in. Your Tesla navigation will give you the door code, and the door code changes regularly. So if you have a Tesla, you can park a Tesla there, charge it, and anyone who has a Tesla or is renting a Tesla or using Turo to rent someone else's Tesla or borrow their friend's Tesla or riding with a friend can then go in, and they have a barista serving those same types of coffee, and you can get that experience. And also it has the same aesthetic and the same decor. So you can get a feeling for how the decor and barista system is used as a morale builder and a leverage and a multiplier. And thus, I close this chapter up to today's date on how the world's best restaurant pivots in a crisis, excels in a crisis, and went from being the world's best restaurant to feeding their area hospitals in the time of crisis. Right now is the corona outbreak and the enforced government shutdowns. Whew. Hope there was some useful stuff in here. Have an amazing day.